Hello, Debbie Gilbert from the Best Business Women Awards, and today I'm joined by Lynn Stanier, MBE, and founder of Their Future Today, a charity which supports families and children in Sri Lanka. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you, Debbie.
So Lynn won our Charity Champion Award back in 2016. So we've known Lynn now for quite a long time, and we've been following her journey and the growth of the charity and all of the things that are going on. So Lynn, for those people who are watching who haven't heard of Their Future Today, tell us a bit about what the charity does and why you set it up.
Well, I set it up to start with because there was so much need after the tsunami. I went as a volunteer and not knowing what to expect, obviously, as I'd never done anything like that before. But I've worked in Sri Lanka for 4 years before that, so I knew Sri Lanka fairly well. But it was actually going into an orphanage for the first time, the shock and horror of what I saw. And I couldn't unsee what I'd seen, and it sort of tormented me. So when I came back, I was actually contacting all of the charities to find out what was going to happen for these children. I was there just 5 weeks after the tsunami.
You used to travel to Sri Lanka to do with the business that you had before?
Yeah, because I was a travel specialist to Sri Lanka, and so I knew, I was very familiar with the country. And yeah, I just was so shocked and wanted to find out what was going to happen for these children. I mean, the conditions were conditions like I wouldn't keep my dog, let alone a child, and it was just heartbreaking. So the big charities all said that they had a disaster fund, which was to sanitize the water, put people in tents, and there was no infection there. So basically they said their job was done, which quite shocked me, and I decided that in future I was going to give my donations to areas that I knew it would be where I could see precisely what was going to happen to it. And started to raise some money here through coffee mornings alongside my job, and promised people that it's going to go to this orphanage, and we're going to try and make some improvements there through a foundation that had set up there. So it was going to be quite easy. I'd raise some money, send it there, and they'd do the job. Unfortunately, it didn't quite go to plan, so I raised some money, and then what happened was there was a child abuse allegation against one of the people there. All of the volunteers had to come out, and I was left with about a couple of £1,000, I think it was at the time, and didn't know what to do with it apart from go back and spend it. So that's what I did. I went back and through my business again to see how the travel business was progressing, or how travel would it be safe to travel there. And so I went back a few months later, met with the commissioner and said I raised some money, and I'd like to spend it in this particular orphanage. And he said, oh, thank you very much. And I said, no, we'll decide how to spend the money, and I will go away and do it. So on that trip, we put in some water, electricity supplies, bought washing machines, nappies, baby milk, spent all the money, loaded up lorries, and because £2,000 you could get a lot for that, and spent all the money. And then I came back and then did it all over again, and then went back again. And so we were in this process of doing that until I had an annual ball, which I think was in 2006. And then we actually raised enough to do a complete restoration of the orphanage. So that's how it really began. And then it was actually at that point that I picked up this baby when I went the first time. She stopped crying, looked at me. She was so tiny, and she was 6 months old, but looked like a newborn. And I just couldn't get that out of my head. And I sort of made her this silent promise when I was there that I'd try and do something to help. And in 2008, they told me that she had a brother in another orphanage. So I actually, within an hour, found him and realised that we spent quite a long time then trying to find their mother, who had to abandon the two children because after the tsunami she became a widow. She was pregnant. She had no means of supporting either of the children. She was homeless. And then we realised that so many of these children in there actually did have families that just couldn't support them. So since then, we've been trying to get children reunited with families, which we've built houses and we've reunited some children, and we're preventing children from going in, but we want to work on a national scale now to actually get alternative family and foster care introduced into the country, which they don't know about. So we're providing the knowledge and the training to the probation services and the childcare protection services. So yeah, it's a bit of a long story, but
your charity is actually, I mean, you had direct contact with the government in Sri Lanka, haven't you? I mean, this is not a small project. You have now grown this massively, haven't you, over the years?
Yeah.
And the impact that you've had. What sort of figure, how many families have you been able to help?
Well, I mean, we're supporting about 3,500 children and families a year. And that's through providing education. We have a bigger education program because we realise actually that, you know, poverty, the reason why people are abandoning children is because they have had no education themselves. And so although there's a free education system, if the children haven't got the books and the pens and everything to be able to go to school to write with, they can't learn anything. And so we've been providing school books, and that's since I think about 2008. And and you know, by giving those children, which are quite often they're all poor rural children, who are often the first of their first generation in their family to go to school. So the idea being is that, you know, with an education, they'll be able to provide for their own children and not have to abandon them.
So what's the situation? Oh, there's a funny noise. What's the situation at the moment out in Sri Lanka with the COVID-19 outbreak?
It's desperate. I mean, really desperate, because I mean, most of the poor people, they manage on a daily wage, and what happened when COVID-19 started to spread around the world, they clamped straight down, put people on strict curfews, which meant they couldn't leave their houses. And their lockdowns went on for several days, and, you know, they were earning no income, which meant that they had no food to put on the table. So we've been having emergency appeals to, we've provided we've provided over 1,000 food parcels now, which we've been doing in various areas of Sri Lanka, where we're just getting all these desperate appeals from people, because now it's a question of actually not just, you know, providing the education. We've got to keep them nourished. Otherwise, if they're not healthy and if they are in a situation where they're having to abandon the children again, then we've got more children that we're going to have to try and get back out of the orphanages, which is a very difficult and complicated system, because basically there is no system in place to do that. So it's really desperate, and even the people that had livelihoods, quite good livelihoods, like the tuk-tuk drivers and people that worked in the hotels, they are also without income at all, because, you know, there's no tourists, and so those people that weren't poor have now become poor.
Yeah, it's increased the number of people in need, basically, massively.
And, you know, unlike here, you know, there isn't a sort of welfare state to help them out.
No furlough, no help, no support. We will post the links at the end, so if anybody's watching this and they want to try and help, then please get in contact with Lynn. Lynn, let's take you back to 2016 when you won your award. I think you've got your certificate somewhere on your desk there. That's great. Oh yes, there you go.
Well,
And let's talk about what made you enter the Best Business Women Awards, the Charity Champion category. What was your thought process behind that?
well, I didn't. To be honest, I didn't really have a thought process as such, because it was actually somebody through a networking group that I was in who sent me the details of it and said, you should enter, you should enter. And I kind of looked through it, glanced through it, and just thought, oh, I'd never do anything like that. So I just kind of put it to one side. And then I think that it was probably a day or two before the deadline that they called me and said, have you put in that application? And I said, oh no, I haven't, and I think I've missed the deadline now. So I looked, and I think you might remember me contacting you at the very last minute, because I think it had to be posted.
Yeah, it was a postal entry in those days. Yeah, you're right.
And I hadn't even started it at that point, and I said, am I too late to send it? And so you said, no, send it in. So I mean, it was literally something that I did put together very, very quickly, and didn't really ever think in a million years that I had any chance of winning it. So yeah, it was all quite a big.
I still remember being in the judging room when they were reading your entry, and the first judge that had read it said, oh my goodness, this is an amazing charity based in Sri Lanka, because they talk in their coffee breaks and things, and I still remember them talking about it. And I remember reading your entry when you were chosen as a winner, because I read all the winners' entries and finalist entries at the end of the process, and actually feeling moved to tears of what you'd written and the help that you'd given. So it was amazing to be able to present you with that award. We'd never met before that night, and I've never even heard of the charity. And now I tell everybody about it, because I think what you do is so incredible. I've even been to one of your balls this year, which was absolutely amazing. So hopefully you'll be able to do that again quite soon. Because with the whole COVID again, a lot of your events, I guess, have been cancelled as well, and fundraising streams. So what impact do you think the awards have had on the charity?
Well, I think the thing for me was, I mean, as I say, I was completely shocked to win, and that was the first thing. I just think it just gave me so much, it built so much confidence in what I was doing. Because I think up to that point, I spent 5 years actually sort of fundraising and working alongside my job. Then I burnt myself out completely and spent 4 years then at home working on the charity only. And then I'd sort of come out of that, and I just sort of started dipping my toe into the water of going out again. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. So I'm going to mention that just purely because I want to give hope to anyone who suffers that, because I had it 4 years and thought that was it. That was my life. But actually, there was light at the end of the tunnel. And once I started dipping my toe into the water, and getting myself out there, and then the award, it kind of really lifted me so much to think, wow, I am actually doing something that is recognised, that people understand, that it kind of took me out of my little circle of friends and family supporters and their friends or whatever, but there was only a certain network that I could reach. But with the awards, it lifted everything, and so it was a huge starting point for me, really. It just took me a long time to sort of get there, really.
And then fast forward to 2018, you got the pinnacle, really, of all awards, an MBE from the Queen. So tell us what that was like, going to Buckingham Palace.
Yes, I did, actually.
There's your picture.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, that was so unexpected. I had a call from the British High Commissioner in Colombo, telling me that I had actually been put forward, because they don't actually tell you you've got it. They say you've been put forward for an MBE, and you know, and was I happy for it to sort of go forward to the Queen for her agreement? And I was like, oh my God. And in fact, it was the funniest thing, because when I had this call, I was expecting a call from a district nurse for my dad. And I put it on speaker. I was actually in a meeting with one of my trustees, and so she heard this conversation at the same time. And so when he finished the conversation, he said, "But what I must ask you is that you must keep this secret until, I think, 15th of June or something." And I can't remember when that was, but she'd heard it already. So she was sort of like, oh, you know, who can we tell? But yeah, you have to keep it very quiet. But I mean, it was an amazing experience. And actually, I had to cancel my MBE at Buckingham Palace because my dad was in hospital and I wanted him to come. And they were so kind, and I asked to rearrange, and they don't tell you who you're going to meet. And when I rang to reorganize it, I said, is it you know, who is it going to be? And they said, oh, we can't tell you that. Anyway, I had to ring them back, and they said, did you really want the Queen? I said, yes, I would love the Queen. And it was one of the last two awards that she gave for MBEs at Windsor Castle. So it was just amazing. Fantastic.
What a great experience. So if anyone's watching this thinking, I'm a charity and I don't know whether I should be entering not just our awards but any awards, what advice would you give to them?
I would say that you know, if you're a CEO of a charity, you don't have time for anything. You're sort of you're doing everything all at the same time, and it's kind of just trying to get through the priorities that come to the top of the list every single day, and you never quite reach the top. And so things like awards, I think probably lots of charities wouldn't really be looking to go in that direction, really. It doesn't come as part of the strategy, which I know other businesses actually see it as a very big part of their strategy, and I can quite understand why. And I think charities don't really look at it in the same way, and I would say to any charity that they should really seriously think about applying and you know, even becoming a finalist. I think it just puts you out there into a different circle, and then you could, you know, try again or whatever. But I mean, winning something and getting an acknowledgement for the work that you're doing, I think it's so important to do. And I thank you so much, because without you and doing these awards, then, you know, this wouldn't have happened for me.
And from an awareness point of view and connections as well, because I know you've worked with a couple of people through the awards as well, haven't you? And I think it's about more people, because we fundraise the following year for the winner of the charity from the year before. So in any event, if you win, you're likely to have some couple of £1,000 coming into your charity. And I think from an awareness point of view, because some of the charities that we've actually recognised through the awards were not that well known. People didn't know about them. They were those gems, the sort of the people who were behind those scenes doing loads of amazing things, and they were lost in a sea of all the national charities that we all know about and all do an amazing job. But it's been great to be able to recognise people like yourself who have done such amazing things for the people in Sri Lanka, and to give you a bit more of a platform to spread the word, really. And I think you're incredibly inspiring. Every time I meet you, I think, oh my God, she's so inspiring. And I think, you know, what you've done is absolutely amazing. So we're going to post the links in the comments, and it will be on YouTube, the links to the charity as well. So if you are watching this, do contact Lynn, do have a look at what they do. They do some incredible work in Sri Lanka, and it would be great if you're a business owner to get involved with a charity like this, because they do make a demonstrable difference to the lives of thousands of people, and who at the moment are in more need than normal because of the situation worldwide. So thank you for joining me today. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Keep everything crossed.
If you need a mask.
Oh yes,
We've
sorry,
got,
yes, I remember you mentioning that. So they're making masks. Tell people quickly about that before we go.
yeah, we're just we're supporting these businesswomen entrepreneurs, but the funds that that's giving them an income to support their families, and they're working obviously in their little homes to make the masks, but they're good quality masks, and what we're doing with the profits of that is we're supporting young girls to get through their O levels by taking these girls off the streets who have been abused, rather than them going into orphanages. We're supporting them, giving them some safe housing and education, so that they'll have some opportunities in the future. So
they can buy the masks off your website.
yes, I've got one.
Show us one.
Yes, we've got
Brilliant.
different colour ones, and blue, orange, colourful ones, and we've got more.
So these women would normally be making items to sell for tourists, wouldn't they? So this is giving them an additional, well, not even an additional, an income at the moment when their other income streams have dried up. So
and it's not sweatshops either, because there's so many of these sweatshops that are knocking out masks and making an absolute fortune. You know, I mean, this is the new business now, isn't it? And yeah, so look at where you buy your masks from anyway, because ethically I think we all have to be a bit more aware.
I think you're right. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. Thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you.